Very nice. Listen, I'm taking a look at the room setup, and there are some of you that will actually have the good fortune of not being able to see me. I'm actually going to stay pretty close to the podium. There's quite a bit that I want to talk to you about over the course of the next 20 minutes that I have. 25 minutes is what I would probably cap this thing out at. Kevin talked a little bit about my career. My career has always had one common tenet to it, and that's customer. And so at my core, in terms of the competency, what I bring to an organization, it's making sure that the company never loses sight of what's critical to the success of its business, and that's understanding its customer. And what I want to talk to you today about is not just only the role of data, but how does data ultimately enable what we're all striving to do, and that's to better serve our customers. And that's what's really, really critical. The other thing that I would say is that I'm happy that you've asked all your technical questions to Dr. Barta, because any of those that come to me, I'll be directing them to Dr. Barta. But thank you very much. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us at this conference. I understand that it's the inaugural in Canada to bring together both the Loyalty World Conference and the Big Data Conference. And we are, and I am, very pleased to be a title sponsor this year and have the opportunity to actually speak to delegates from both groups that represent both loyalty marketing and data analytics today. What I want to do is spend a bit of time talking about the big picture for Canadian businesses as it relates to loyalty and data. And more specifically, what I want to do is start to offer my views in a few areas. One is, how should organizations start to think about tackling this opportunity? How loyalty and data should interplay to the benefit of consumers. And then I want to spend a bit of time talking about how dynamic customer insights can actually drive decisions that make profound differences for your business. Thank you. In 2011, the European Consumer Commissioner was actually the first to describe personal data in terms of a highly valuable and a coveted natural resource that is actually essential to the world economy. And as we reflected upon that at Aimia, we actually agreed with this idea, and we've utilized it because it actually articulates well our perspective on the value that data plays within the communities that we serve. Now, if you wade through some of this noise, then a few critical considerations are important to note here. On the positive, there is an opportunities. Retailers should want to actually engage in activities that can increase their operating margins. And on some of the studies that we've been a part of, operating margins that we think can actually be increased by up to 60%. In reality, however, there is a level of unpreparedness in the market. There's a disconnect that actually exists between IT spending growth and data growth. And when we take a look at the differential between the two, there's like an 8 times differential, again, between the IT spending growth and data growth. And looking forward, and I'm going to spend some time talking about this a little bit more, there are going to be deep constraints. Analytical subject matter expertise is already in short supply. And again, Dr. Barta talked about the numbers cited by McKinsey, but if you use the U.S. marketplace as a sound indicator for this globally, close to 200,000 analytical positions need to be filled, and there is actually a need for 1.5 million managers that truly get data. So towards the end of my discussion, I'm going to talk again about the critical role that talent and capabilities plays within the organization to be able to make sense of the data that's coming in. Now, with all this said, many still struggle with what big data means, its potential impact on our business, on our customers' businesses, or even, and most importantly, on our consumers. In some circles, it pertains actually to the amalgamation of massive quantities of data. In others, it means social media analytics, or it's about the evolution of data, or management capabilities, and you can go on and on. It's actually been a challenge to come to a consistent view on a common definition for big data and how it links to meaningful outcomes. And I think the reason for this is because we as marketers, we as IT professionals, analysts, statisticians, and academics, we're all looking at this from different perspectives, our own perspectives. However, the good news is that we're starting to move towards some conformity, despite the noise and convolution. And again, I'm going to talk about this in just a minute. So, others have talked a little bit about this before me, but when you think about social, email, tweets, Facebook, messages, and likes, these are our communication norms, and as marketers, it's easy for us to actually get quite excited when we think about what these represent. They represent a means for us to connect with our customers at our core, but we need to understand how we can actually best push our content to consumers through channels in the most relevant manner possible. And I want to pick up on this idea of conformity of thought around the term big data itself. The reality is that we live in what I would describe as a data-intense environment, more than what I would describe as a big data environment. A few technical terms. 1 petabyte consists of 1 quadrillion bytes, and most of us can understand what a kilobyte of data means when sending files through an email system. And IDC actually reports in late 2011 that the total amount of global data is going to increase by about 50% versus 2011. And when we think about the data interactions that occur, whether they are emails, tweets, Facebooks, likes, or messages, the collective total that we're getting is actually quite staggering. And there are no signs of slowdown. In fact, innovation will only continue to drive this curve upwards. Eric Schmidt at Google predicts that the world creates 5 exabytes of data every 2 days globally. And a recent report by the Economist Intelligence Unit actually notes that this is the same amount of data that was created from the beginning of time up until 2003. It's an astounding figure. But what I find most interesting in this is that we've clearly been operating with this magnitude, with this mixture, and with this speed for a while. We didn't just wake up one day and arrive at a collective worldview of data in the terms of zettabytes. Additionally, when I look at how people view big data evolving, such as these perspectives from a recent report published by IBM, they don't really add clarity. Greater scope is somewhat of a vague, descriptive term at best. And as loyalty marketers, we read this and want to understand the baseline to appreciate the magnitude of what greater is. New kinds of data, new kinds of analysis is equally vague, and what is the connection to its size? This is a commentary, again, on type of data, not necessarily size of data. Finally, as marketers, we do understand the importance of real time. So it's pretty exciting for us, but again, this is a measure of speed and not size. The point being that these views speak to the data element itself, but not all are size-oriented. And it's why I believe that in many respects, the big and big data is somewhat redundant, and if not irrelevant. In its infancy, as it incubated primarily within a technology realm, this made sense, but now it has become a fundamental business priority, and so the term no longer needs size as confinement. What marketers really should recognize, however, is that the value of data is apparent and that now data is fundamentally a core business priority. It's inspiring business process transformation in marketing teams and across other functional groups, such as operations, IT, and finance. It is even spawning new organizations and new industries. It is changing the dynamics of our world and business, and it's changing the dynamics with us personally. Moreover, data tied into a loyalty context aims to address business issues through data-enabled analysis and solutions. It's actually allowing businesses to move beyond points accumulation-driven loyalty solutions and strategies towards an emphasis on data-driven problem solving, and always with a customer-centric viewpoint. And that's critical, in particular for an organization who does a lot of business on a points-based currency. We understand that it continues to play a role. It's a critical role, but the very role of loyalty is changing and evolving far beyond that. This combination of targeting customer issues and connecting the dots between interactions through data are actually the pillars for a strong information ecosystem. So what does this mean for us in the room today? It means that there is an abundance of opportunity that is ripe for the taking now. We can play a significant role both in the near term and in the long term. So as an example to support my outlook, the Economist Intelligence Unit actually notes that most companies are potentially misguided about their own activity when it comes to loyalty. One of the common pushbacks that we get at Aimia from prospective clients is that they believe that they're already meeting the needs of their customers, where the data that we would have would suggest that they might not even be meeting 40% of their most loyal customers' spend. But let me tie this focus on data back to the relevance of loyalty marketers. Many businesses still focus primarily only on the purchase transaction as a means to capture the data and engage with it, which was the essence of loyalty marketing previously. However, marketers need to recognize that new technologies and channel innovations have forced this now simply to become table stakes. We now need to integrate the principles of loyalty with broader data points that extend across the entire purchase cycle in order to show Canadian businesses how to provide incentives, whether currency, status, or a combination of the two. And businesses now need to outline a means to providing a complete service offering for their brand. Again, this service offering requires interactions with the brand across the entire purchase cycle and incorporates, as was previously mentioned, entire omni-channel strategy, providing seamless and consistent customer recognition and brand experience across multiple channels available to customers. The brand experience needs to drive the experience. It's something that I've shared a lot within our organization. Whether the interaction is through TV, a retail footprint, smartphone, or catalog, it needs to drive the experience as opposed to the channel driving the experience for the brand. And it sounds simple enough, but not if you don't appreciate and understand the convergence and the characteristics of the data that is involved today. And there was someone before me that talked about this in terms of volume, variety, and velocity. Volume is where we started and why the term big data actually emerged. However, we're well past the size element associated with data today, and I believe that marketers get this the best. Social, mobile, and location-based marketing tactics are exciting us to, by virtue of deploying these tactics, we understand the different types of data that actually exist. We understand that some customer information is more readily compiled and understood because it has structure, while others are more challenging to interpret and use because of their lack of structure, as you'd largely see in a social scene. Finally, anyone who's been in our business appreciates the importance of time. Time is money, but importantly, timing and getting the timing right is pretty much everything. And what I mean by this, from a marketer's viewpoint, is that without data and information at the right moment, the opportunity to influence the purchase behavior at that time is generally a lost opportunity. However, we also live in a world where the data is pretty volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, and at times it's ambiguous. Each of these factors actually plays havoc on an organization and a marketer's ability to gain context for these customers. And there's no doubt it's difficult to do. However, there are advanced mathematical theorems and techniques, whether through optimization or fuzzy logics or yet to be defined approaches. They're one path to managing through this pretty complex environment. What I want to spend some time talking about, though, is the notion of test and learn, and a basic philosophy and a belief that an organization is going to have to, in my opinion, allow to live within their companies. Canadian businesses need to understand this. It's a clear understanding of the business objectives to be achieved that also requires companies to actually have the courage and their convictions to take action when they're taking risk knowingly and they're not sure of the outcome. It requires the organizational appetite and environment that allows for creative approaches without guarantee of successful results. Imagine taking two less reliable sources to drive towards an accurate and useful customer insight. The philosophical allowance to do this within an organization, I would argue, is really quite significant. Yet loyalty marketers know that this can be done today by combining data elements, whether it occurs within social media plus GPS data. But let me be clear that the onus is on us as marketers to convince the rest of the organizations that this is a pragmatic approach to the business, that it holds risk, but the risk is offset by the benefits that the company will receive over the future years as a result of better serving its customer base. Now let me reinforce this by way of example. In 1998, Harrah's, later to become Caesars Entertainment, made a pretty bold decision, and that was to restructure the business with data at its core. To do this, they knew that they needed to do two things specifically. They needed data-savvy and visionary talent, would be one. And secondly, they needed strong executive leadership to drive the cultural shift that would no doubt ensue. Now, Gary Loveman at the time was an associate professor at Harvard at the time, and Harris felt that he possessed both of the attributes that they were seeking. Now, if you read any interviews with Gary Loveman or potentially heard him speak about one of his secrets to success, which includes creating the third largest casino around the world, then you know that he cites coming into the organization as a chief operating officer was a critical decision for him. And it's because that the undertaking required both authority and influence to make operational decisions driven by data and customer insight that directly influence the P&L. The casino industry, as many of you may know, is quite competitive. It has virtually limited product differentiation, and it has ample availability. So Gary introduced a loyalty card program with collection of data at its heart, and a test-and-learn philosophy driving the actions taken by the casinos to propagate the desired and incremental behavior that they were looking for from their customers. The program actually encouraged Harris players to share as much transactional information as possible with the casino through an exchange of value, such as providing players with free meals and tickets to shows and the like. And inferential models were actually then built that attempted to predict how players could be induced towards a more profitable purchase occasion. Now, this is best illustrated through an example that Gary has shared publicly. So picture a 60-year-old woman visiting a Caesars casino near her home and playing a $10 slot machine occasionally. The loyalty program data that they had actually indicates that the women of her age who live near casinos are potential high-value customers to the casino. From this data set, the inference was made that this player's total gambling spend was actually being consumed more so outside at other casinos than it was at the Harris casinos. The critical element to this was that the choice of the machine that the player uses, novice gamblers generally don't play $10 slot machines. And so alongside her demographic and usage patterns, it actually provided Caesars the necessary insight about the customer so that they could target more directly offers and opportunities and gaming solutions that would satisfy that person's needs much more effectively. Now, what I like about this example is that it actually highlights the role of loyalty and places the customer again at the heart of the organization's efforts. Additionally, it does place an emphasis and importance on how connecting the dots and extending the loyalty cycle can deliver value and relevance to customers. It shows actually how organizations learning to fully leverage data will be able to focus their efforts towards areas that provide true differentiation to create seemingly unique relationships with their customers. At the core, that is great marketing. And it's something that marketers all strive for. Now, precision-based decisions come only through leveraging customer data, delivered through the right offer or through the right incentive. The loyalty model, however, has evolved from focusing from currency accumulation to rewarding customers for their transactional behavior. Currency or status now can be utilized to gain access to insights from the customer as they make price comparisons, discuss our brands on social sites, interact with our websites, and evaluate our products. Furthermore, and I think this is important, the role of loyalty is clearly married to a data strategy. A marriage where both parties are dedicated to the successful achievement of common goals. It means that we as marketers and IT professionals no longer operate in isolation and independently, but there's a recognition that there is an interdependence between all of the organizations and all the departments within an organization. So it's so very appropriate that the delegates from these two conferences have come together in recognizing the role of data and loyalty and how they do come together. Now, we've arrived at a point in time where the value of data has become really quite apparent. Businesses are finding competitive advantage and gaining share on their competitors through actionable customer insight. The convergence of mass digitalization, innovation, data analytics is actually driving us forward. Mass digitalization is actually fueling the surge in data. Investments in new technologies and talent is fueling our ability to gain consumer value from data insights. And analytics is actually fueling our ability to create meaningful and in-depth relationships with our customers. In particular, the digitization of almost Anything and everything has created new types of data and pushed the speed of data across towards real-time number of industries. Most of this data doesn't fit the norms of our structured relational data warehouses. Think about sensor-generated data. Think about everyday devices that use streaming data, such as applications that allow for HD TV. Think about geospatial data that allows us to get from point A to point B. How do we tie this to a specific individual, and how do we determine which of it to use? Advanced technologies and techniques are the means to extracting insight from data, and they are more sophisticated, more accurate, and quicker than their predecessors, which actually reinforces the marketer's reliance on deep data analytics. Now in Canada, and this was mentioned a bit earlier, most companies are currently focusing their efforts towards structured data. And maybe that's because they don't have the competitive pressures of other markets around the world. You can see here that 91% of people in Canada view data analytics in terms of reporting and query, which is good, but it's in its pretty basic form. U.S. and European firms are actually moving faster than Canadian firms to incorporate the use of unstructured data. And one of the reasons may be that these markets are increasingly seeing pricing pressures from online behemoths like Amazon and the like, and so there's a necessity for them to continue to innovate to stay ahead of the curve. Now, I recognize that having the capabilities to analyze unstructured data is a challenging one for most companies, and in absence of a specific driving element like competitive activity, organizations may be a bit timid in taking this on. Furthermore, despite hardware and software innovations as enablers, a further limiting factor may be finding people with the right skills to be able to manage this activity for us. I would, however, put forward to this audience that we can no longer be complacent and ignore this very important need. We actually need to embrace the day of the data professional. It's now upon us, and the moniker of a data scientist or similar may actually become more commonplace within organizations. But let me be clear, I'm not talking about a traditional number cruncher. These individuals need to understand the objectives and priorities of the business in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. They need to understand the needs of the customers, the nature of the competition in their markets, the interplay between these elements and the data itself. Technology and innovation can allow for the development of data analysis efficiencies, but ultimately organizations need individuals. They need people to be able to take the output from the black box, synthesize the results, formulate the plans, and take the tactics that can be actioned. Success is going to be tied to filling this void, which is going to require a fair degree of investment for firms in the future. Yet, at the heart of all of this, a tenet of loyalty may hold our fate in hand. Marketers know that customers are willing to provide information and data to businesses where they perceive that they are receiving value in exchange. Additionally, this needs to be accomplished in a framework of transparency to build a trusted relationship. But with a data set that is growing exponentially, a company's ability to more readily gain access to data on their customers could actually threaten this exchange. Now, in today's world, everyone in this room can appreciate the need for putting into place strong security and governance processes. Privacy, security, and governance must become the bedrock for all companies who wish to embark on a customer data strategy. Ultimately, the relationship with the customer needs to be one that is trusted, one where the customer is in control of their data, where it is used in a transparent manner, and it provides value to the customer. Value being more timely, well-informed, relevant interactions through the touch points and channels of the customer's preference wrapped in, overall, a positive experience. At Aimia, we've established a set of guiding principles that we actually call TACT. Transparency, added value, control, and trust to help us manage customer data in a more consistent way around the globe. Transparency is really about making sure customers and clients can provide informed consent to how their data is used, as we are clear about what data is being collected and the way that it is being collected. Every decision that we make about how individuals' data is being used should drive a reward or a benefit, an added value. The explicit value exchange leads customers to be receiving great rewards and partners to generating more profit from our analysis of the data. Our customers and clients should have control over the data they entrust with us and with whom it is shared. And trust is built by our customers and clients having confidence in the way we hold and look at their data. And I think Dr. Barta had mentioned it earlier. At the end of the day, it's not just for security reasons, it's not for business risk reasons, it's reputational. It's reputational for us to continue to have the trust and confidence in consumers out there to provide us access to data, which should help make our engagement with them a more productive one, is going to require that we adhere to, at least at Aimia, these principles of trust, of tact. So it is from this view on what constitutes value that we actually link the importance of customer centricity and business priorities driving an organization's data strategy and blueprint. In combination, analytics fuels the customer insights to enable loyalty, to create an enriched experience, and deepen customer relationships, while loyalty enables the use of data analysis. Now, some of the foundational elements of loyalty stem from the ideology of Ray Kroc at McDonald's. Quality, service, experience at that time in his day was about cleanliness and value. And I believe that these hold true today and will hold true tomorrow, which means that if value remains the virtue of customers, then leveraging customer data has now become a base requirement of business in order to meet customer needs and service expectations. Innovation and digitalization requires companies to develop and execute upon an enterprise-level customer strategy. Leaders in this industry will be defined by their ability to successfully locate, retain, recruit talent that carry a mix of business, analytical, and IT acumen. So what I've tried to provide you in that 20 minutes is, like I said, a big picture view on my take on loyalty and data in Canada. It's a view on why business leaders need to understand that loyalty is the true means of utilizing data sets to provide tangible benefits to its customers.